But, there's a lot more to talk about. Like just yesterday, Mark Meadows went on Maria Bartiromo's show, and he dropped the bombshell that he fully believes that the transcripts are going to come out from the spying interview where Downer, and you got to get the book, folks, Deep State Target. It's well worth the read. It's very accessible. It's not going to be over your head. By the end of it, you're going to understand everything that happened, the whole sequence of events, and you're probably going to be pretty fired up about it because, Roxanne, like you were saying during the break, it's amazing at what our investigators did to this man. Mm-hmm. I mean, they breached his constitutional rights and tried to set him up and entrap him, all to get to President Trump, to create a false narrative about stuff going on with President Trump. And so apparently the Boy Scouts ain't Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. They're behaving worse in many cases, it seems like, than some of the criminals that they're busting with some of the schemes that they're pulling. And so what I think may come out soon, because I wonder why Congressman Meadows would talk about it if he didn't know that this is on its way to declassification at some point soon. And, of course, the Democrats are pushing for the declassification of everything underlying the Mueller report. So let's get the actual transcript of when Alexander Downer was spying on and taping his conversation with George Papadopoulos. Let's also get the transcript when Stefan Halper, the walrus, was doing the same thing. Because in both cases, George says he feels pretty strongly he didn't pass along that information that we learned today was planted by Joseph Mifsud. It was planted on Papadopoulos to be later retrieved by Alexander Downer, and when he wasn't successful, then Stefan Halper. And so, that information, those interviews is going to come out. And what's going to happen? How are you going to feel, folks, when the transcript comes out and you see that, George Papadopoulos was told the truth the whole time, that he never lied to investigators because he didn't say this stuff that Downer says he said. What are we going to do then?
Mm-hmm. So you've got the plotters in the FBI and the CIA, and of course they enlisted the help of other intelligence services from other nations, Britain, Australia. But Italy is changing things, or I should say they've taken a step in the direction to do so because they're holding hearings, or they did, in Parliament to declassify material related to this Joseph Mifsud guy.
Right. And of course, we still don't really know who all these people are, but as more and more evidence comes out, what's becoming apparent is they're not who they appear to be. A lot of them are made up to look like Russian agents and other things. But when it comes right down to it, we find out they work for our own CIA or our own FBI, and they have done for years. Like just yesterday, we learned Carter Page, there's another person who was kind of tied up in all this, although there's some question as to whether Carter Page was a willing participant. And you got to get George's book because he gets into some of the details about some of these other players. But it's just now come out by his own hand from Carter Page that he's been a CIA asset for decades, he says. Decades he's worked for the CIA and also apparently the FBI, but CIA was the one he was covering yesterday on Maria Bartiromo's show. So then it comes into question whether he was perhaps even a willing participant in this entire setup, both to get the dossier into the circulation and also to get the wiretaps on President Trump's campaign.
So this whole tangled ball of string is going to come unraveled someday. Where would you say the raveling is right about now?
I would say
loose.
I would say it's just starting. It's just starting because the American people don't really have a good sense for all the details. Mm-hmm. And the details have been kept under lock and key by the ongoing Mueller investigation. Where we couldn't release any of this because it has to do with an ongoing investigation. Now, granted, the investigation was a hoax. It was a farce, but that was all they needed to protect the documents and protect the information that shows us what they were really up to. Well, now that investigation's over with, now it becomes appropriate to release some of this information, the source documents and other things. And I think it's as that begins to drib and drab out, I hope people are still paying attention. I hope they care enough. I certainly know I care. I mean, I'm pretty upset about the idea that our domestic and even our international intelligence services basically turned against one presidential campaign in favor of the other campaign, and they tried to help Hillary Clinton win the election. I mean, that's shocking. That's just absolutely shocking. And there's no universe in which you're going to convince me that that was justified or okay, right? There just isn't. I mean, unless you could show me that Trump was doing some major stuff, which nobody has ever proved any links of conspiracy or collusion with the Russians. So there was absolutely nothing underlying this entire hoax, right? That's the point. The only thing they've got is they claim the Russians interfered in our elections. And on this show, we've proved that, okay, maybe they did, but it was such a small amount. It's what we call a drop in the bucket that it really couldn't have had any actual effect. You know, if 10 grand spent on a couple of platforms changed a bunch of Americans' minds, then we've got a lot more problems in this country, you know, than the fact that the Russians want to interfere with our election, because we got a bunch of people that aren't thinking for themselves. They're voting based on a meme. And I don't really think that's the case, folks. We know you're thinking out there. I mean, somebody's listening to our show. Somebody's listening to Hannity. Somebody's listening to Rush Limbaugh. You know, people are thinking about this and trying to work this out for themselves.
Reminder, if you want to hear that interview with George Papadopoulos, you can once again today on Money Talk 1010 on 5 p.m. And Morgan, that was so good.
Wasn't that good?
We're going to also include it in Mindset Matters at noon on Friday, too.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Wow, what a treat, folks. We so enjoyed that interview. And like I said, you need to go out there. It's available on Amazon. It's well worth the money. It's a great read. You got to go get George Papadopoulos' book, Deep State Target. And, you know, hold the phones because, I mean, we're going to be working on getting him down here now. We got to get him down here to Tarpon Springs. It's a perfect fit for him. You know, he wants to do some politics, which I think he's made for. I think he'd be a great politician. He's got such a good head on his shoulders. And, you know, I could see there being a lot of reasons for him to enjoy visiting the Tampa Bay pretty regularly.
He almost said, guaranteed he wanted to eat a gyro with you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we'll get some tzatziki sauce. We'll get some shrimps.
Baklava, yes.
Baklava. I mean, we'll be set. And we've got the best of the best over here in Tarpon Springs. So, well, folks, thank you so much for joining us today on the Morgan Streetman Show. I mean, I'm almost speechless at this point. Like I said, I mean, I just want to go sit and listen to this interview over and over and over again and think about it. That's how much fun I had today. Hope you had a little bit of fun doing it, too. What a treat for us. And go get George Papadopoulos' books. Folks, I'm Morgan Streetman, and that's the way I see it.
Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.